Is blindness a barrier? No.
Is deafness a barrier? No.
Are mobility, learning, cognitive disabilities, speech impairments and others, or even a combination of them, barriers? No way. Lack of accessibility is.
Welcome to Web Accessibility for All.
Follow the blind. This journey starts now.
Hey, my friend. Welcome back to Web Accessibility for All, the podcast where we unpack design decisions that can either empower or exclude. I am Ariel, your host, and today we are talking about something deceptively simple: color contrast. Now, before you roll your eyes and say,
I know about contrast, Ariel.
Yeah, it's that 4.5 to 1 thing, right?
hang on. This episode goes way beyond numbers, because contrast is not just about colors. It's about visibility, it's about communication, and sometimes it's about whether your modal dialogue even exists to a screen reader user with low vision.
A real, invisible barrier.
Let me take you into a real test session I ran last year. The user, a woman in her 60s, who recently had cataracts removed from one eye but not the other. Her vision was technically correctable, but she described it like this.
It's not that I can't see. It's that everything looks washed in fog. Especially when the background is just a bit darker than the text.
She was trying to complete a form inside the modal window. The background behind the modal was blurred and semi-transparent, and the form itself used low saturation colors. The result? She literally couldn't tell where the modal started or ended. The problem wasn't her screen, it was ours. This is why contrast matters, not just for people with low vision, but for anyone outside that ideal test case.
What is contrast ratio?
When you use a contrast checker, it gives you a number like 4.5 to 1. That's called the contrast ratio. It means the text color needs to be at least 4.5 times brighter or darker than the background, depending on which is lighter. The higher the number, the easier the text is to read. So when you see 4.5:1, think of it as a measure of visibility power. If your contrast doesn't hit that mark, your content might be hard or even impossible for some users to read or use.
WCAG color contrast requirements.
According to WCAG 2.2, label AA, normal size text must have a contrast ratio of 4.5:1 or higher. Large text needs 3:1 or more. User interface components like icons, borders, and focus indicators, they also need 3:1 or better. But here's the trick. Contrast is not static.
When contrast gets complicated.
Let's say you put white text over a fancy gradient. Sure, some of it is readable, but that one section where it overlaps a pale yellow, boom, failed. Or maybe your model opens over a blurred backdrop with a dark to light overlay. You check your model's text. It's fine, But what about the button's hover state? Is that subtle drop shadow enough contrast? And what happens in dark mode?
I made the modal 80% opaque, so we're good, right?
Yeah, but now the cancel button looks like a rumor?
Focus, halos, and shadows.
Focus indicators like outlines, glows, and halos must be visible on every background they land on. That means a visible ring around inputs and buttons, a contrast ratio of at least 3:1 with the surrounding pixels. Same goes for halo effects and shadows. A blurry glow might look elegant, but if the focus ring gets lost inside it, your user loses too.
Transparency, gradients, and decoratives.
Opacity and gradients are design candy, but accessibility poison if not handled with care. When layering translucent colors, test the resulting color that users actually see. Decorative images, if they don't convey information, they're exempt, but make sure text doesn't sit over them.
What about transitions?
You know those smooth transitions in JavaScript frameworks like expand, collapse, fade in, fade out. They are not about contrast, but they can impact it. If an element is fading in over a dynamic background, contrast must be sufficient throughout. If you hide text with opacity or scale, make sure it's not causing ghosting or animation delays that hurt visibility or screen reader performance.
High contrast mode and system overrides.
Let's talk about high contrast modes. Windows offers full-on override themes that replace colors with system-defined values. Mac OS and iOS let users increase contrast and reduce transparency. Android offers high contrast text and color inversion in some cases. Always test your UI with system contrast settings enabled. Use Force Colors media queries to adapt styles to those modes.
At media left paren, forced dash colors colon, active right paren, left brace. Button left brace. Border colon, 2px solid button text semi. Right brace. Right brace.
How to test color contrast properly.
Let's shift gears now and talk about how to check for color contrast issues. Because no matter how good your intuition is, you can't test contrast by eye alone.
WebAIM Color Contrast Checker.
This is a classic and a favorite of mine for quick checks. Hosted by webaim.org, the color contrast checker lets you input a foreground and background color and instantly tells you whether it meets WCAG level AA or AAA.
AxDev Tools.
This is a free browser extension for Chrome, Firefox, and Edge. It scans the current page for accessibility issues, including color contrast failures. It's one of the most trusted tools in accessibility audits.
Color Contrast Analyzer.
This tool is ideal for designers working with complex UIs. It's a free desktop app that lets you eyedrop colors from anywhere on the screen, even if the element is inside a modal or layered with effects. It supports alpha transparency and calculates the effective contrast ratio.
Keyboard Navigation.
Use your keyboard to explore every state of your interactive elements, like hover, focus, and active. You can also use DevTools to force those states if needed. As you tap through the page, make sure focus indicators are clearly visible, and don't forget to test how your design behaves in dark mode, high contrast mode, and when zoomed in.
Pro tip:
Don't rely on just one tool, my friend. Each has strengths. Some work best on live web pages. Others are better for local design files or components rendered in Storybook. Consider adding automated contrast checks in your CI pipelines too.
The real meaning of contrast.
Contrast is more than a color ratio. It's about making things legible, noticeable, usable. Big bold text with tight line spacing might technically pass, but still feel like a wall of noise. So use size, white space, hierarchy, iconography. Contrast isn't just visual, it's structural. Lee Bourou, one of the developers behind CSS Standards, once tweeted,
Most color combinations that are trendy now are actually unreadable for many people. Design trends should never come at the cost of accessibility.
Final takeaways and action.
Alright, here's what I want you to do after this episode. 1. Open your app. 2. Navigate with just your keyboard. 3. Trigger a modal. Look at your focus ring. Hover a button. 4. Ask yourself, is this readable to everyone? If you are not sure, use the tools and ask real users. Remember, color contrast isn't just about numbers. It's about human vision, perception, and dignity. You've been listening to Web Accessibility for All. I'm Ariel, reminding you, great design isn't just what looks good, it's what works for everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks for joining us today. Subscribe for a new challenge next week. And don't be shy. Leave us a review or ask your accessibility questions online. See you next week for another episode of Web Accessibility for All.